Okay, so we're going to dive into a story today about a 19th century artist, Richard Dadd. But it's also about crime and about uh, what the Victorians used to call madness.
Ah, fascinating.
Yeah, and you might not know his name, but stick with us because it's a really interesting story, one you won't forget. So imagine this. It's 1843, a summer evening in Kent, England. Looks very peaceful. And then a man is found murdered.
Ah,
Yeah,
that sounds awful.
it was brutal and, obviously a murder's never a nice thing, but this wasn't just any murder. The victim was Robert Dadd,
Mhm.
and the murderer was his son, Richard.
His son.
Yes, his son, Richard.
Well, that's shocking.
It is shocking. And I think what makes it so compelling and what makes us want to do a deep dive into Richard Dadd
Yeah.
is that it wasn't like a typical crime. Richard Dadd wasn't some kind of hardened criminal. He was actually a rising star in the art world.
Hmm.
He was known for his talent, also for his very gentle nature, and he was one of the founders of a group of artists. They called themselves the Clique. And they were, young artists really pushing the boundaries of what was considered naturalistic art at the time.
So how does somebody like that, a promising young artist, a man known for kindness, how does he end up committing such a horrific act?
Well, it's a complicated story, and there are lots of different factors. There's ambition, there's this grand tour that went wrong,
Yeah.
and there's this descent into, as I say, the Victorians called madness,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all kind of tied
Oh,
together.
I
Yeah, so to really kind of get into it, we need to look back at what led up to this crime. So imagine 19th century England, right? It was a time when if you were wealthy, a grand tour of Europe was all the rage, or even, a tour of the exotic East. They thought it would broaden your horizons. You'd get to see the ancient world, and it was, a big thing. And Richard Dadd, he was actually commissioned by a very prominent figure, Sir Thomas Phillips, to go on one of these journeys.
Okay.
And this journey really did change his life, but not in the way perhaps Sir Thomas Phillips had hoped. You see, this grand tour, which was supposed to be this big inspiration, this wonderful thing, actually seems to have had the opposite effect on Richard. He started getting really frustrated with the schedule. He felt that everything was rushed, that they were moving too quickly from place to place, and he was struggling to really capture everything he was seeing in his sketches.
So like struggling with the speed of the tour?
Yeah, exactly. The speed of the tour.
See.
Imagine trying to quickly sketch the majesty of the Nile River, for example, or the bustling markets of Constantinople. He just couldn't get it all down. And he was used to putting in meticulous detail. He wasn't one of those artists who did a quick impressionistic sketch and then moved on. He liked to get every detail.
Well, I was gonna say, and didn't he have that hyper-realistic style he was known for?
Exactly. He was known for that. So this frantic pace, it didn't suit his artistic process at all. He just found it impossible to create those really detailed, naturalistic works that he was so well known for. And you can imagine the pressure just started mounting.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially with someone like Sir Thomas Phillips breathing down his neck.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the pressure of creating the art.
Hmm.
The physical challenges of the trip were really getting to him as well. Just think about it, trying to sketch while on horseback.
Yeah, that doesn't sound easy.
No, not easy at all. Or, you're in these ancient tombs and it's really dimly lit, really difficult conditions. It was just so different to the nice, calm, controlled environment of his studio.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then there's the Nile River journey. As you know, part of the grand tour was to sail down the Nile. And the sources describe Richard's behavior during this particular part of the trip as becoming increasingly erratic. He started making all these strange pronouncements, claiming that the ancient Egyptian god Osiris was communicating with him.
Really? So that's interesting. Almost as if the heat, the exotic landscape, the ancient mythology, it was almost like it was seeping into his mind
Mhm.
and blurring the lines between reality and delusion.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And it really does raise a question, doesn't it? What was the real tipping point for Richard Dadd? Was it just, sunstroke, as Sir Thomas Phillips initially suspected? Or was there something more going on, a more gradual mental decline, maybe? Perhaps exacerbated by the stresses of the journey, the culture shock?
Yeah, the constant pressure to produce.
Exactly. And when he got back to London, things didn't get any better. In fact, the sources paint a very unsettling picture of his return. He started eating this really strange diet, almost entirely raw eggs and ale.
For eggs and ale, that's
Yeah,
a bit odd.
very odd. And the things he was saying, they were getting stranger and stranger. There was this growing paranoia, this unsettling fixation on certain things. And then, after the murder, some more artwork was discovered in his room.
Yeah.
And it was really chilling. It was depictions of his friends and family, but with slit throats.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's almost like a
It
premonition.
is like a foreshadowing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of the violence to come.
Yes, definitely.
Gives us a glimpse into what was happening in his mind at the time.
Yeah, and they weren't just artistic expressions, were they? They were signs that something was really deeply wrong.
Exactly. There were warning signs. And tragically, those warning signs were missed. So one evening, seemingly ordinary evening, Richard convinced his father to go for a walk with him in Calm Park. They were just strolling along, and then suddenly Richard attacked. He stabbed his father and cut his throat.
Oh, gosh.
It's a really frenzied, brutal attack. And it seems like it was driven by this, well, twisted sense of purpose, that he felt he had to do it. Witnesses reported that he shouted, "Go and tell the great god Osiris that I have done the deeds which is to set him free."
So he still believed that he was, in contact with Osiris?
Yes, it seems that way. And obviously, this horrific crime, it sent shockwaves through Victorian society. I mean, it was all over the newspapers. They were calling it a mild-mannered artist turned patricide.
Yeah, because it was just so unexpected, wasn't it?
Exactly. Totally unexpected. It horrified people, and it
Yeah.
fascinated them at the same time.
Yeah, of course, of course.
And the manhunt, well, it was really intense, fueled by, public fear, but also that fascination with the case. But incredibly, Richard managed to escape. He escaped to France.
Wow.
I know, it's another layer to this already incredible story.
So he got away
They-
from England
Yeah.
to France,
Yeah.
and what happened next?
Well, it's in France that we see his delusions really taking hold. He actually tried to murder a fellow traveler. They were on a stagecoach together.
Yeah.
And Richard claimed that he was acting under divine instruction. He said he had to get rid of a demon.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so this incident obviously cemented his image as a dangerous madman in the public mind, and he was arrested in France.
Okay.
And this is really interesting because it actually marked a very significant moment in legal history.
Oh.
Yes, he became the first person ever to be extradited from France to England.
Wow, that's a landmark case.
It is, yeah. It really set a precedent for international cooperation in criminal matters. But for Richard, it meant that he was going to be confined to Bethlehem Hospital.
Bethlehem Hospital. That's
The infamous Bedlam.
Bedlam, known for, well, it's pretty awful conditions, wasn't it?
Yeah, known for its harsh treatment of the mentally ill. And you might think, well, that's the end of the story. Talented artist, consumed by madness, locked away in an asylum. But that's not the end of Richard Dadd's story. It actually takes another really interesting turn, one that really blurs the lines between madness and artistic genius. And we'll get into that next time.
I can't wait. You'd think that being locked up in Bedlam would be the end of his artistic career, wouldn't you?
You would, wouldn't you?
Ah.
It's not exactly known as a place to, nurture creativity.
Yeah, not a very inspiring environment.
No, not at all. But that's what makes Richard Dadd's story so fascinating. Because instead of giving up, instead of despairing, he actually found comfort in his art. Yeah, within the walls of the asylum, he just kept creating, drawing inspiration from things he read, like Shakespeare and the classics, and also from this world that he had created in his mind. We should probably just mention that Bethlehem Hospital, Bedlam, it had a pretty awful reputation.
Oh, yeah, no, we were just talking about that.
Yeah. And even though it had improved somewhat by the time Dad was admitted,
Because of reform.
exactly, thanks to those reforms, it was still, a very difficult place to be. And remember, his confinement there was a direct result of both his crime and how Victorians viewed mental illness.
Of course, yeah.
So it wasn't a place designed to help someone like Richard Dadd.
No, not at all.
But in this really unlikely setting, something amazing happened. He became known as the fairy painter.
The fairy painter.
Yes. His work started to become more and more fantastical, full of fairies, mythical creatures, and just incredible detail that seems to reflect his inner world. Yeah, it's really something. And one of his most famous pieces from this period is called Sketch of an Idea for Crazy Jane. It's based on this old folk ballad about a woman who is driven mad by a lost love.
Oh.
And it's just this haunting glimpse into Dad's artistic vision. It's almost all done in these shades of blue, gray, and brown, very muted colors. And you see Jane, she's got these wild eyes staring right at you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's fragile, but also kind of unsettling.
It sounds very intense.
It is. And what's really interesting is that it feels very modern, even today.
I was just thinking that. It's hard to believe it was painted, in those conditions.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it? That something so powerful could come out of a place like that. And there's another painting of the Fairyfeller's Masterstroke. It's unfinished, but it's considered a masterpiece. It was actually commissioned by the head steward of the hospital.
Wow. So they recognized his talent even then.
Yeah, it seems so. And it's just teeming with detail. You can see Oberon and Titania from A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Oh, of course.
And then all these other fairies, some from Shakespeare, some that Dad just made up.
And was this painted in that same sort of hyper-realistic style?
Oh, yeah. Incredibly detailed. You can see every blade of grass, every little flower, every fairy wing.
It's like he was creating his own world.
It is, isn't it? Like he was trying to escape from the reality of his situation. But do you think, given the limited treatment options at the time, do you think his art was actually hindered by being locked up? Or could this outpouring of creativity have happened anywhere?
That's a tough question. I mean, on the one hand, his art was clearly an outlet for him.
Definitely.
A way to cope with the challenges of being confined and, dealing with his mental state.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you do wonder what he might have achieved if he'd had more freedom, better support.
It's hard to say. But these paintings weren't just pretty pictures,
No.
No, they were really important for the doctors who were trying to understand what was going on with him.
Right, trying to understand his condition.
Yeah. Dr. William Hood, who was the superintendent of Bethlehem at the time, he kept really detailed notes about Richard Dad.
Really?
Yeah, about his behavior, his delusions, even how he created his art. He was fascinated by Dad.
He must have been such an unusual case.
Yes, very unusual. And Hood's notes, they give us this really interesting but also incomplete picture of Richard Dad the man. We see him battling these, what Hood called violent impulses. And we see that he really believed that spirits could possess him and make him do things.
So these weren't just, creative flights of fancy. He really believed this stuff.
He really believed it. But at the same time, Hood also recognized that Dad was intelligent, talented, and even capable of forming human connections.
So it's a really tragic and complex picture.
It is, very much so.
A man who could create such beauty, but also trapped in his own mind.
Yeah, it's hard to think about. And it really does make you think about how mental illness was understood and treated back then.
Oh, definitely. Very different times.
But Dad's story doesn't end at Bethlehem. In 1864, he was transferred to Broadmoor Criminal Lunatic Asylum.
Broadmoor, that's...
Yeah, I know the name sounds pretty ominous.
It does.
But it was actually seen as a positive step for Dad.
Really?
Yeah, he hadn't had any violent outbursts in years. And this new asylum was supposed to be more relaxed. Because they thought it'd be better for him. And what's amazing is that his creativity didn't suffer at all. He just kept painting, still exploring the same themes, fairies, myths, Shakespeare.
So that creative drive was still there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It seems like nothing could stop it.
Yeah.
But his later years are also shrouded in a bit of mystery.
How so?
Well, we have the doctor's assessments, but we don't hear much from Richard Dad himself.
Right, his own voice is missing.
Exactly. It's like he fades further and further into the asylum system.
And that's what makes his story so compelling, I think. We get these glimpses into his mind through his art, but we don't really know the man himself.
Like a puzzle with missing pieces.
Ah.
And speaking of missing pieces, there's this really interesting story about one of his paintings called Halt in the Desert. And it was based on some sketches he made during his grand tour. But this painting, it vanished for decades. And then, get this, it turned up on the Antiques Roadshow in 1986.
Wow, what a find.
I know, can you imagine?
So it just goes to show his story is still unfolding.
It really is.
Even after all these years, his art can still surprise us.
Definitely.
Still captivate us and still make us question, what we think we know about the human mind.
It is amazing to think that even now, all these years later, his art still has this power to fascinate people.
Oh, absolutely. Even today, over a century after his death, people are still captivated by those paintings.
Yeah, you see those intricate fairies, the vibrant colors, and that almost obsessive level of detail.
Yeah.
And it really is like stepping into another world.
Yes, and I think that's part of the enduring appeal, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely.
That timeless quality, that fascination with the fantastical, the otherworldly, it just resonates across generations.
Absolutely. But I think his paintings are more than just pretty pictures.
Oh, for sure. They're much more than that.
They offer us a glimpse into his mind.
Yes, like a window into his thoughts and experiences.
They really help us to grapple with those complex delusions that he had and to understand the world that he inhabited.
It's like trying to decipher a secret code, isn't it?
Yeah.
Looking for the meaning and the symbolism, the recurring motifs, the way he blends mythology and reality. And it raises a really interesting question for us.
What's that?
How do we interpret art that's been created by someone experiencing psychosis?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a big one.
Do we separate the art from the artist, or do we see it all as part of their lived experience?
I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's something that art historians and psychologists still debate today.
Hmm.
But maybe it's that very ambiguity that makes Dad's work so interesting.
The tension between beauty and something a bit unsettling.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you're right. It forces us to look beyond the surface, to consider different perspectives.
And it challenges our assumptions about creativity, mental illness, and even the nature of art itself.
Exactly.
Richard Dad's story also makes us think about how we treat people who are different,
Yeah, those who don't fit our neat definitions of normal.
right? In his case, really highlights how limited medical knowledge was back then. And it shows us the often harsh realities of the asylum system.
Definitely.
I think it's a powerful reminder that we need more empathy and understanding when it comes to mental health.
I completely agree.
And I think the most important thing to remember is that even in the darkest of circumstances, the human spirit can still find ways to express itself, to connect with others, and to leave a mark on the world.
And that's Dad's legacy, isn't it?
Oh.
His art, which came from a mind in turmoil, continues to challenge us to look beyond labels, to see the humanity in all people, and to appreciate the power of creativity.
Absolutely. So was Richard Dad a victim of his time or a visionary? We'll leave that for you to decide. But we encourage you to explore his art, delve into the history of mental health treatment, and come to your own conclusions. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.